I've been putting this off for way too long. Let's get into it. Welcome back to Lizard of Doom. My name is Max. I've been leading up to a Chaos Knight diorama for some months now, and I haven't painted all the Chaos Knights for it. This episode will be finishing the second knight in the series, the Chaos Knight Rampager. If this is your first video of mine, all of these techniques have been gone over very thoroughly in the past playlist that is on the channel for the Chaos Knight diorama, and I'll be linking them in the top corner as we go. So without further ado, drop a little like, help me with the algorithm. Cheers mate, and subscribe, 'tis free, good sir. So let's get into it. So this is where we left the Knight Rampager. He is based all over, and I've even put a bit of a wash over all the metallics in between the video we last saw him in and this one. It's an Agrax Earthshade wash. So let's get all my stuff ready and get going with this big boy. This Knight diorama is a massive, massive project, and it's taken over my life for the last couple of months. First off is a dry brush with these Pro Acryl metallic paints. Link in the top corner now for the metallics and the muzzle burn coming up in a second. This is just to bring the shine back to the metallics after I've done the wash all over them. I'm not worried too much about being neat because the weathering stage is going to be quite heavy and I'll be able to hide all of the little mistakes I've made during these stages. Once I've got them dry brushed, they've got the shine back to the edges of all the metallics. This is where we're at. We're now ready to do the muzzle burn. This is the orange to blue to purple method of doing muzzle burn using shades. I take most of the orange off on my hand so it's a nice consistency on the brush and it's not going to swamp and pool on the metallic exhaust pipes. I start building up a layer nearly at the bottom of the exhaust pipes leading upwards, just stippling this on. Overall I did 2 layers of this once the first one had dried, continued with the second one to build up the orange. After that I did the same with the purple, starting slightly overlapped with the orange to create a nice transition. You can see the transition starting here. This is my favourite method of muzzle burn and it works really well. To finish off, it's blue all the way to the tip, and when we're done with that, it'll look lovely. Next is my patented formula of official Games Workshop transfers mixed with nail art decals. If you want to see where I got these nail art decals from, up in the top corner. Another good use for your wet palette is using it to soak your transfers. This is assuming you haven't got any paint on it already because you do not want the paint leaking onto the transfers. To prep the area I used Ard Coat first and then Decal Fix. This gives it a nice smooth surface to apply your transfers to. When doing this you want to make sure you cover the entire panel that you're putting the transfer on, because if you leave a little edge of Ard Coat it'll look like a lip later on and you don't want other paints and washes and shades and streak and grime falling in that lip, so you want to cover the panel entirely. Once that's done I place my nail transfer in the correct place and apply a bit of pressure. This is a little bit more difficult than your standard transfer because the nail art decals go on upside down, so you can't actually see where it's going until it might be too late. But there we go, perfect. The Vulture of House Wrecked. Lovely! Now I've been in this hobby for just over a decade, and I'm here to tell you that transfers are hard. Sometimes they even go wrong for quite experienced people. Let's just have a look. Let's have a little look, shall we? When you pick them up with your wet brush, sometimes they curl around the brush, and if they stick to themselves, sometimes there is no uncurling them for love nor money. At this point, it is usually just best to completely get rid of them. They are done. Pick another one off the sheet and try again. Much better. This time it went on okay, didn't curl. It's always best to just cut your losses when you need to. Other times, it's not your fault that it's hard. Sometimes Games Workshop give you these big floppy transfers that you've got to shift around these areas with spikes and cracks and everything and try and get in the right place. The trick to doing this well is to keep the area very wet with water. Then you can slide the decal around to your heart's content. This was one of my most challenging decals. This Chaos shoulder pad has lots of spikes and bits and bobs on it. This decal came with this kit, but it doesn't seem to fit this shoulder pad very well. I actually end up trimming a little bit off the bottom with a scalpel. Once this was in place, it looked really good. but unfortunately, the hazard stripes the other side were painted in a weathered way, so I now need to make this match. But first I matte varnished the area to get rid of the shine of the Ard coat and the decal fix. The first weathering was done with Wraithbone, which was the base coat for the actual hazard stripes on the model. This was just stippled all over the white areas of the transfer to make it look roughed up and grimy from its years on this JCB of a knight. I didn't do this in any kind of pattern, just splodging it wherever I felt like, as the damage would probably be quite random over this time. The next colour for weathering is Troll Slayer Orange. This will be used to just chip the edges of the transfer to make it look not so perfect. This is the best part of this weathering, I think. This adds a lot to this decal and makes it look like it's part of the miniature. With the transfers done and weathered down to the same level as the rest of the knight, it's time to move on with the finer details on this knight. The first thing to cover is these cables. You can see I've based them in white and black. That's black for the bumpy ones and white for the smooth ones, as I'll be painting these differently all over the knight. First step for the hazard stripes is this Iron Jaws yellow. In the previous tutorial I did use Imperial Fist yellow, but I've run out of it, so this will do. The white undercoat really helps the yellow pop, and I don't think it's a problem that I'm using two different yellows. After all the weathering, you won't really be able to tell. This is also very bright. Not quite as bright as the Imperial Fist, but it's still glaringly yellow. I made sure this was covering all of the white before I moved on to the stripes. The hazard stripes will be done with contrast paint as well, Black Legion, just because I can control it a little bit better. And it's my personal favourite black. I start these by putting diagonal stripes on one side of the cable. This is done all the way along, making sure I am reaching slightly over the top and under the bottom, as that will become important in just a second. We're heading for a nice spiral effect on these stripes, not just bands around the cable. I'm poking it slightly over the top and under the bottom so I can see it from the other side. And then when I see it the other side, I can connect the stripe above to the stripe below it in the same order every time. So then the stripe spirals around the cable and looks nice and continuous with no gaps. All of these fine detail tips are in the video linked in the top corner now. Once I've got that done, you can see nice even spacing, nice consistent stripes, and it's time to do a little highlight on them just to make it look plasticky and shiny. I'll be using Screaming Skull for this, a slightly off-white bone colour. You want to place your highlights just at the tops of all the cable, you see, just at the top on the left, and then we'll repeat this top on the right. If this was a cable that bent upwards rather than downwards, I would put it on the rounded bottom bit, if you know what I mean. Do you know what I mean? Maybe. There we go. Shiny plastic hazard stripe cable. On to the next one. This black one is nice and textured and just asking to be dry brushed. Look at it. Thunderhawk Blue will be the first dry brush to put on here, and again I will be aiming just at the top edges of the cable, just like I did the plasticky highlight on the hazard stripe one. This is a simple, quick job and easy way to do textured cables. The next highlight will be Blue Horror. This will be in smaller areas closer to the top of each cable as well, just to bring out the tops of the edges of all that texture and make it look like the light is hitting the top edges of the cable. There we go, textured cable's done in 30 seconds. How about that? So that is most of the fine detail on the knight done with those few steps. Now I'll be doing the skulls as trophies on the knight. I'll be using Games Workshop's recipe, going with the Zandri Dust base, followed by an Agrax Earthshade wash, and then we will be going back to the Zandri Dust base just to bring that colour back through again, hopping up to a Shabti Bone, and then going to Screaming Skull. Classic recipe, no need to mess with it. But while I do that, it is time for your dose of lizard lore.
House wrecked. I miss the time when we was just the vultures, simple scrapper gang. He keeps calling himself Emperor Augustus now. I remember when he was just Augustus, a little grease monkey with a spanner in his hand. House wrecked? Nothing would be getting wrecked without me. I rampage through anyone on the battlefield, but now it's always destroy this, destroy that, kill them, kill that. I am house wrecked. My chainsaw has been through twice as many enemies as anyone else's, maybe twice as many as the lot of them. They don't value me, I'm just a blunt tool used for a task. They want to be careful. We used to spit on emperors. Now Emperor Augustus is getting a bit too big for his boots. Who does he think he is? Why are we taking on the Imperium, the Tau, the Necrons? This is stupid, we're biting off more than we can chew. We should have just stayed on Discar and never got these machines. I am surprised how long they're lasting though, and I am feeling surprisingly spry these days. I used to feel the ache in my bones, but now I feel nothing but powerful. Is it the machines? Or is it the rituals we've been doing at night time? I couldn't tell you. I'm leaning towards the latter. But nevertheless, I suppose the scrapping trade hasn't been better. But maybe we need a new emperor. Maybe the next leader should be... Maybe the next leader should be me. Yeah, that sounds good. Who put Augustus in charge anyway? I should be the next leader. Or my name isn't.
Now that is up to you. I'm doing a Name the Knight competition again. Leave it in the comments and I will announce the winner in the next Chaos Knight video. What this name is and who has named them. Previously we've had the Chaos Knight before this, it's called Augustus, and 2 of the Chaos War Dogs are called Thrasher and Malt. I haven't forgotten, it's still all in here. Next up on the agenda is the glass panel on top. This bold red contrast will be the main colour for the red glass in that lens door piece, with the centre being this Flesh Terror red to give it some depth to what's behind the glass. We'll do one highlight in one corner with this Wild Rider red, and a highlight in the other corner with White Star from Duncan Rose's Paints 2 Thin Coats. First of all, I give the eyes a little red flavour to make them match the glass on top. I have based the eyes and the glass on top with this White Star to give this contrast paint a nice pop to it like I did with the cables before. I'm going to slap this on relatively thick to make it nice and bright, and then we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to wet blend this darker contrast into the middle, and when you get it to a level you like, you'll end up with a piece of glass that looks like there's a dark space behind it. Nice and dark in the middle, nice and light at the edges. One little highlight up here of that red colour. Makes it look like light is passing through the glass. Then a little white glint at the bottom corner there to make it look like a reflection on the glass. After this we're going to make it glossy, so we will get real light reflections as well as these other manufactured reflections. Looking good though. A bit of hard coat to give it that glossy feel, and we are there with this door panel on top. Lovely! I like this effect. It does work on small areas too. I did it on some lenses in the fine detail video in the Chaos Knight diorama playlist. Next is going to be the loincloth. We're going to do dark brown leather with Gargak Sewer contrast as the base for it. This is one of my favourite contrast paints and I'm going to brush it on now. We're going to follow that with Oak Brown and Monster Brown from Army Painter, and we're not going to brush that on. We are going to use something a little different. We're going to sponge that on using this piece from an old carry case. Put it on nice and thick. I want this to be dark. This is meant to look like worn leather. The reason I am using the Army Painter paints afterwards is because they are slightly gloss, and that'll give it more of a leathery finish than if I use satin or matte paints. Sponging these on all the high bits just to give it the wear and tear from over the years of being battered. These are 2 very nice paints, but they do need mixing very well. I find Army Painter's browns and greens can be a little disappointing. Make sure you mix these well. It's a nice orangey colour. If you look at that, it looks like some battered leather, but time to give it some fresher, deeper cuts. This is what the lighter colour is good for. I'm just putting it in smaller areas and taking bits that I got wrong off with my finger as I go. Just smearing it off because it's quite a thin paint. You can get away with that. You don't have to wick it away with your brush all of the time if you can get away with it. This is the final piece, but we've got a couple out of place that I don't really like, so I am going to wick these away with my brush because they've been on there a little bit longer, so I can't really get away with using just the finger. First I'll dampen the brush and then dry it a little bit on my tissue paper, and then bring it in and just wick away these light bits that are in too much of a dark area. I didn't like them there, I didn't think they looked good, so I am getting rid of them. Much better. Once that dries, it'll be the same colour as the background. Looking good. And with all the fine detail done now, it's time to move on with the last step of this night, the weathering. I had planned to use this little atomizer bottle, as I had done in the first tutorial for weathering on the channel, link in the corner. Now, you know the deal by now, there's going to be links in the corner. It was only spraying little bits on the model, and it had been in the thinner since the last time I'd used it a couple of months ago. But the clog was unfixable. The mechanism was jammed, so I resorted to just painting it on. This was going to be quicker for me than just setting up my airbrush, because I just needed to slap a bit all over. Nothing fancy. And then take it off again. This is a reductive technique, so you put it all on, take it back off. Next is some dirty down rust. Slap this all over the iron areas. This has to be mixed very well and warmed slightly to work. Once painted on, it will dry into nice orangey, browny, patchy rust. Have a little go if you haven't tried it before. It is magic. With that looking good and dry, it was time to use the verdigris version on all the brass areas. I did this again, slapped it all over, thinking about where water might pool on the model and where it would cause more rust and verdigris to happen on this metallic surface. This is a water-soluble paint, so do not get your model wet after that unless you intend on doing this special effect. Once it had dried, I got my water and I got a handy little toothbrush that I keep in my toolkit, and I splashed it all over the model. Where this water reacts with these chemicals, it creates lighter spots wherever it is splashed. Nice yellowy orange rust and nice white verdigris. This makes it look pitted, and it looks very, very nice when it is dried, and you can watch it happen in front of your own eyes. Have a look how much more natural this product looks now, after I've given it a little splashing of water. Have a go at home, let me know what you think. Look at these nice little orange bits on this chain, and these nice little pale bits up there. Lovely! This stuff is called talent in a bottle for a reason. I then repeated this process all over the night, making sure I hit every area that I'd put these two products on. Once that was done, it was time for Muddy Feet. AK Muddy Ground Texture is a nice thin texture paint. I slapped it all over the feet to make it look like he'd been trudging through the jungles of Discar, my rusty, degraded, disgusting jungle world. The gunk built up on these feet over the couple of years they've had these things would be immense, as I don't think they're going to be taking very good care of them. I left this to dry overnight because if I'd blasted it with a hairdryer to dry it like I do other things, it would have dried on the surface but not underneath, and I wouldn't have been able to work with it without messing it up. I also brought the toothbrush back out to splash some of this about to make it look like it'd been stomping in muddy puddles in the rain. There we go, now he's got diarrhea feet, it's time to wait till the morning. In the morning, Agrax Earthshade to darken it all down, and then a little bit of a dry brush with Sylvaneth bark to bring back the edges and make it look like there's multiple layers of wet and dry mud on this model. Splashing it on thick, not really worried about pooling, I do want areas to look dark and wet, so pooling actually helps in this case. Making sure I thoroughly covered the mud and waited for that to dry. After that comes the dry brush, you can see it just picks out the edges, makes all this detail look much more natural, and we'll have a close-up now to have a better look. Look at that. This is an easy effect you can do on any of your models. Tanks, infantry, titans, anything. Make 'em muddy, boy. The last weathering step was this pigment powder. This will make it look like dirt is left in the cracks from all its time stomping around that's dried and all the silt that would be on it. First of all, I brushed it on with a big soft makeup brush and then spent some time brushing it back off with a big soft makeup brush to leave just a little bit. You don't want to overpower it. It looks quite harsh to start with, but spend some time brushing it back off and it looks good. And now that he's weathered, it's time to do the base. Oh wait, I've done the base already in my basing video. Shazam! So we will get into the reveal shots. So we will get into the reveal shots in just a second. But first, I'd like to thank my lovely Patreons. They will be over this side of the reveal shots, not here, you expected them then. but they'll be on the reveal shots. So if you would like to help support this channel and the future projects on this channel, and join our little Discord community, we've got loads of lovely people in there. We talk hobby every damn day. If you don't want to do that and you just want to take the free option, then subscribe. Go on, you know you'll want to. Thank you for watching. I will see you next week. I release videos every Friday. I have been Max. You already know that, I introduced myself at the start. It's not a pile of shame, it's a pile of future fun.
They call me a god. 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 Let's go. I'm about to go off like a weapon. Fuel to the top, got a filled up engine. In my thoughts, obsession. I will not stop, no, I'm never second guessing. I got a God complex. Haters love to hate, but I never feel pressed. Got a lot on my plate, but I never get stressed. I'll take all the pressure like I'm acing this test. Oh, tear it up like I'm Jason. I see the world like it's ready for the taking. I see this place like a game I'm playing. Straight to the bank to collect my payments. No negotiations, it's my way, I was born impatient. And like a damn Freemason, I'll run this nation. They call me a god.